So take a look back. 1 month ago, the Ravens were sitting at 1-5. Lamar Jackson wasn't playing. He was dealing with a hamstring injury. And nobody really panicked, not even Vegas, because they said, you know what?
Is the craziest part.
That they never really wavered on the Ravens to win that division. They said if Lamar Jackson can come back and their schedule is pretty easy, the Ravens could potentially win this division. And now they are sitting at 5-5. They have won 4 straight. And that is where we begin with Pete Prisco and Douzable. Pete, I want to start with you because, look, when you look at the AFC standings, the Ravens are sitting 10th right now. They're still at 12 in your power rankings for this week because last week it wasn't such a great showing against the Browns. So where is your belief level in this Ravens team right now?
Well, my belief level in him is very high, but I have to say it's time for Lamar Jackson to become Lamar Jackson again. He hasn't been that yet. Coming off that injury, just hasn't looked the same. And I do think it's coming. And I don't know when it's coming, but I do think it's coming. And the bottom line is he doesn't look like he's willing to take off like he used to before the injury, and that's concerning to me. But when you look at their schedule and you look at the fact that the Steelers have some injury issues at quarterback and they play them twice, I think the Ravens are sitting pretty, and I've said this all year long. The Ravens have been victimized by the fact that they've been great in the regular season and lost in the postseason and haven't played well in certain games in the postseason. Well, this year, it's the complete opposite. They haven't played well in the regular season, but I think they're going to make a push to get to the postseason, and once they get to the postseason, look out, because they're going to be one of the most dangerous teams in the entire tournament.
Yeah, Pete, I'm pushing all my chips in the middle of the table on the Baltimore Ravens. And you laid it out perfectly. Like, this is a team that year after year we expect just to be there. And they're always a front runner. Well, this year they've had to literally come back because they were 1-5 and win 4 in a row. People forget even the 4 wins in a row. That first game was without Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley was the quarterback. And I know you're saying that Lamar's been a little timid. Thing that people don't understand is I think he was even beat up before the hamstring injury, Pete, because he just was timid running the football. The biggest, I don't want to say concern, but the biggest realization for me is why I'm pushing all the chips in the middle of the table. It's because of his defense. That was the Achilles heel in the beginning of the year. Remember, Lamar and his offense was still putting up 30 points a game, even though they were losing games. The defense really struggled. Well, now everybody's back healthy. Everybody's playing up to their talent right now, and that will be what takes them to the next level. Not only do I have them winning this division, I have them making a real run in the playoffs. So, again, pushing all my chips in the middle of the table on the Baltimore Ravens.
There's never been a team 2-5 to make it to the Super Bowl, let alone 1-5 at that, where they were a month ago. Okay, so all of this is good news for the Ravens. All of this is bad news for the Steelers, who are still on top of that division by a game. However, first it was the defense that was a problem. Now it's the offense that's a problem. Now Aaron Rodgers is dealing with a hand injury. Lige, we'll start with you. They're slipping at absolutely the worst time.
They are, but Mike Tomlin always rights the ship. And again, Aaron Rodgers' injury is a big concern, and also their schedule is a lot tougher than the Ravens' schedule down the stretch. But, Pete, I feel like we say this every year about a Mike Tomlin-led team, and they just seem to figure it out and figure out how to get in the playoffs. Whether it's 9-8, 10-7, they figure it out. Amanda, you laid it out perfectly as well. This has been a seesaw effect when you talk about this team. 1 week the defense shows up and looks like world beaters. The next week, like versus the Chargers, the defense doesn't show up at all, and the offense doesn't show up. So when you look at their schedule and you look at 2 wins versus playoff caliber teams, right? The Patriots was 1 game and the Colts was the other game. You know what the common denominator in that game was, Pete? They turned the football over. They were able to get teams to turn it over. They had 5 turnovers they forced versus the Patriots, and then 6 when you look at versus the Colts. I don't know how sustainable that is. So there is some question marks, but I'm going to lean on Mike Tomlin for some odd reason. They're going to win games down the stretch that you don't expect them to win. That's just what Mike Tomlin does.
Well, the next 3 weeks are going to define who they are. Look at that schedule. I mean, it starts this week with Chicago. We don't know where Rodgers is. Then you get Buffalo. Then you get the Ravens. And so, look, if they're going to win the division, they have to win at least one of those and maybe even 2 of them, including the Ravens. Because right now, you mentioned it, they're so inconsistent. 1 week the defense is good. 1 week the offense is good. 1 week the defense is horrible. 1 week the offense is horrible. There's no consistency there. And I think Tomlin's done a great job getting them to where they are right now. But I don't see this team hanging on. And, I just don't. I think the Ravens are the better football team. They get them twice, and that schedule, like you mentioned, is brutal. So I think they have a real uphill climb to win this division and even get into the postseason.
All right, let's move on to another team that always makes it to the postseason, that has won their division 9 years in a row. Kansas City Chiefs. They are now sitting at 5-5. Pete Prisco, this is you and I'm talking to you because every single week you say they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Andy Reid, they're going to right the ship, they're going to be just fine. They have not been just fine recently. Do the Chiefs still make the playoffs, now sitting at about a 55%? By the way, if they lose to the Colts, that drops to about 35%. Where are you with the Kansas City Chiefs?
I think they still make the playoffs. And I just think that when you look at that schedule, yeah, it's tough, but a lot of those games are at home. But more than that, Patrick Mahomes will get it going. When you look at what Patrick, he didn't play.
I don't mean to laugh just because we heard it last week and the week before, too. Keep going. I'm serious now.
Played very well at all last week. He was terrible, in fact. He missed some open shots down the field. He threw a red zone interception. He can never do that. But I do think they're going to get cranked up. I think they win this week against the Colts, and then I think they get, the Cowboys game could be tough, but they'll win that. And then they get on a little run. The biggest game for them, when you look at it, because they're not winning the division, by the way. That's out. They're not going to win the division. That streak is over. But they can get in the wild card and become a dangerous team. The big game for them is the Chargers. And the reason I say that is because the Chargers have a tough schedule down the stretch. And I think it's going to be between the Chiefs and the Chargers to get that final wild card spot. And so keep an eye on that game. But I think the Chiefs are still going to make a run. Hey, I'm a believer. Like I said earlier on the show when we were on before, Michael Jordan has off days. He shoots some bricks. He misses a dunk. He missed some layups. Well, Michael Jordan had an off day last week. Michael Jordan's going to come back with a vengeance down the stretch. You watch.
Amanda, they have minimal margin for error. And you said that Chargers game is the most important? No, I think this is a must-win this week. Now, the good thing that's on their side, and we talked about this earlier, Pete, when you look at Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs at home this year, they're 4-1. On the road, they're 1-4. And when you look at the remaining road schedule, I think one's at the Titans and one's at the Raiders. You would think they would win those games. So I do ultimately think they'll get it right and get in. But to me, this is a must-win game because if they were to lose this game, that Cowboys game, you think they're going to win? I think the Cowboys are going to have their number on a short week at home. Dallas usually always wins on Thanksgiving. That's a tough road. And as we have to look at the schedule right here, they have the Broncos again. Now, we don't know at week 17 what the playoffs will look like. Will the Broncos maybe have sold up number 1 seed? The Patriots right there nipping at their tail. So the Broncos could have a lot to play for in that game. So could that be a game that flip-flops and goes either way? Could PS2 be back for them, right? The defense is only going to be bigger. You talked about the Chargers game. That's going to be monumental as well. The Texans are vying for a playoff spot. But again, the Chiefs have looked really good at home, but they've struggled on the road. But luckily for them, their toughest games are at home. I do ultimately believe they get it done, get enough wins to get into the playoffs. But again, Amanda, minimal margin for error.
I want to find somebody who loves me the way that Pete loves the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, the Packers, and Will Levis. That's all I want in life. I'm going to put it on a dating profile, Pete. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, minimal room for error, according to Lige Douzable. It is a tough game. They're going up against the Colts this weekend, who are sitting at 8-2. The Chiefs are favored at home by about 3 points right now. Pete, talk to me about the Colts. Despite sitting at 8-2, look, Daniel Jones, 7 giveaways the last 2 games. He's been sacked 12 times. It seems like they do need a get-right game.
Yeah, and I said this earlier as well. I said, look, this is a lot of people are saying this is a prove-it game for the Colts. I think it's more of a prove-it game for Daniel Jones. When you mentioned those turnovers, and they haven't been as good on offense, and he has to be big. When you go on the road and you go against a really good team in their house, you can't turn it over, and you have to be the guy that decides the game. We know Jonathan Taylor's going to get his yards, but at some point the quarterback has to make the plays to win it. And we all sit here, and anybody who says they don't, we wonder if Daniel Jones can do it in a big moment on the big stage. So I think this is a big proving game for him. And by the way, Jacksonville's schedule is really easy down the stretch. And they play the Colts twice. That division isn't over yet. If the Chiefs somehow beat the Colts this week, it gets really tight, and they can start looking over their shoulder a little bit.
Yeah, to me, Pete, I actually do think this is a measuring stick. Yes, for Daniel Jones and this Colts team. If you want to be considered a true, legit contender, you have to beat teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, because that's who you're going to face in the playoffs. And Amanda, you talked about it. Daniel Jones that's what I'm going to call him. I usually call him Indiana Jones, but he's played like Daniel Jones the last 2 weeks, giving the football away. You can't do that and expect to win games. Like Pete said, Jonathan Taylor is going to get his. That offensive line, too, when you look at some of the games that they've struggled in, the Pittsburgh Steelers game and the Atlanta Falcons game, they got kind of whooped by those defensive lines, right? So this will be a big measuring stick for them as well. Now, the Chiefs have really struggled getting after the quarterback. Me and Pete talked about that earlier. They have really struggled getting after the quarterback. It was like Bo Nix had all day to throw the ball in the fourth quarter, and that's why they end up winning that game versus the Kansas City Chiefs. But if you're the Colts, this does come down to Daniel Jones, because Steve Spagnuolo always wants to take away what you do well. We know they want to establish the run. So Daniel Jones has to take care of the football in this game. And the good thing about it, we saw the graphic earlier, they're the #1 offense in football. They score on 56% of their drives, which is unheard of. But it comes down to Daniel Jones taking care of the football, and I believe he will this week.
Man, Daniel Jones back to Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence, probably according to Jacqueline, now back to T-Law after that spanking of the Chargers.
T-Law, bro. T-Law has nothing to do with the performance. That's who he is.
Okay, I don't know about that, though.
Nobody named T-Law. Just remember. Nobody named
Jacqueline's the only person that calls him that.
You guys are so wrong for that. Like, whatever. I can't get into it.
It's okay.
Amanda,
It's okay. I'm just gonna say your dress is more Colts blue than Jags.
It's not. It's
turquoisey.
It's more Gator blue than it is Colts blue.
I could see that. Huge weekend of NFL when it comes to Week 12 on CBS. It all starts at 1 Eastern with that game, the Colts at the Chiefs. The Chiefs desperate for a win and to not head into a losing record.